Tom Walker was 3 bolts into fixing the elevator panel when he heard the voice behind him. "Excuse me, are you almost done? I have a meeting on the 15th floor in 10 minutes. Tom glanced over his shoulder at the woman. Elegant, professional, clearly important based on the designer suit and the way she carried herself. "Sorry, ma'am. Safety inspection found a fault in the control system. Elevator's going to be down for at least another hour. Stairs are your best option." The woman sighed, checking her watch. "Of course. Thank you." She started toward the stairwell, then paused. "You're Tom, right? Building maintenance?" "That's me." Tom returned his attention to the wiring, wondering how she knew his name. "I'm Vanessa Mercer. I work on 14. I've seen you around. Always patient with residents, always thorough. My grandmother lives here, Mrs. Cordova in 8C. She talks about you constantly. Says you're the only maintenance person who actually listens when she reports problems." Tom smiled despite himself. "Mrs. Cordova's a sweetheart. Fixed her garbage disposal last week. She said you wouldn't take the tip she tried to give you, that you told her you were just doing your job." "I was. Tips aren't necessary for doing what I'm paid to do." Vanessa studied him with an expression he couldn't quite read. "That's refreshingly uncommon. Thank you for being kind to her. She doesn't have much family nearby." After she left, Tom returned to his work, thinking nothing more of the encounter. At 36, divorced and raising his 10-year-old son, Max, alone, Tom had learned to focus on what mattered: steady work, reliable income, being home for dinner. Random conversations with residents didn't register as significant. But 3 days later, Vanessa appeared again while he was replacing light fixtures in the lobby. "Tom, can I ask you something? It's going to sound strange." He climbed down from the ladder, wiping his hands on his work pants. "Sure, Ms. Mercer. What do you need?" "I don't have a husband," she said abruptly, her professional composure cracking slightly. "I know that's a weird way to start a conversation, but I need you to know that up front. I'm single, entirely unattached, no complicated relationship status. And I would very much like to go on a date with you." Tom stared at her, certain he'd misheard. "I'm sorry, what?" "I'm asking you out. On a date. Dinner, maybe? I realize this is completely inappropriate. I'm a resident, your staff, there's probably rules about this. But I've been watching you for months, seeing how you treat people, and I can't stop thinking about you. So I'm asking, will you have dinner with me? Miss Mercer, I'm a maintenance worker. You're clearly successful, professional. I'm a CEO of a tech startup. I'm also lonely, tired of dating men who see me as a stepping stone or a trophy, and genuinely interested in someone who seems to give a damn about people." She took a breath. "I'm not begging because I'm desperate. I'm asking because you seem like the kind of man worth knowing. But if I'm making you uncomfortable, just say so, and I'll never mention it again." Tom thought about Max, about the complications of dating as a single parent, about the clear gap between their professional worlds. Every logical reason said this was a bad idea. "I have a son," he heard himself say. "Max. He's 10. I don't date much because he's my priority. Any relationship would have to accommodate that. I'd expect nothing less. A man who prioritizes his child is exactly the kind of man I want to get to know." Vanessa pulled out her phone. "Can I give you my number? You can think about it, talk to Max if you want, and if you decide you're interested, call me. No pressure, no expectations." Tom took her number, still processing what had just happened. That evening he told Max about the unusual encounter while they ate spaghetti at their small kitchen table. "A CEO asked you out? Like a real CEO?" Max's eyes were wide. "Apparently." I don't know if I should call her. It seems complicated. Is she nice? She seems to be. She's Mrs. Cordova's granddaughter. Mrs. C is awesome. If she's related to Mrs. C, she's probably okay. Max twirled spaghetti thoughtfully. You should go, Dad. You never do anything for yourself. I do plenty. You work and take care of me. That's it. When's the last time you went on a date or did anything fun? Tom couldn't remember. My life is fine, Max. I don't need. You deserve to be happy too, Dad. Not just me. You. 2 days later, Tom called Vanessa. They met for coffee first. Neutral ground, easy escape if needed. Tom arrived in his best jeans and a button-down shirt, feeling underdressed when Vanessa showed up in casual elegance that probably still cost more than his monthly grocery budget. "Thank you for calling," she said, genuine relief in her voice. "I was worried I'd come on too strong. You came on very strong, but in a refreshingly honest way." Over coffee, the story emerged. Vanessa had built her company from nothing, poured everything into success, and woken up at 34 realizing she'd achieved every professional goal but had no personal life worth mentioning. Most men she dated were either intimidated by her success or trying to use her connections. I watched you interact with residents for months before I worked up the courage to ask you out. You fix Mrs. Patterson's door without being asked. You help Mr. Rodriguez carry groceries. You explained the thermostat to the Johnson family 3 times with infinite patience. That's not someone performing kindness. That's someone who is kind. I just do my job. No, you do more than your job. You do it with care. That's different. Tom shared his own story, the marriage that had ended when his ex-wife decided she wanted adventure more than family. The choice to take steady maintenance work instead of pursuing skilled trades that would have paid more but required unpredictable hours. The daily calculation of being enough for Max. You gave up higher pay for time with your son, Vanessa said. That's extraordinary. That's just parenting. It's not, though. Most people optimize for income. You optimized for presence. That takes courage. The coffee date became dinner the following week, then a weekend afternoon at the Science Museum with Max, who immediately liked Vanessa despite his usual wariness of his father's rare dating attempts. Then regular Friday dinners when Max was at his mother's. 3 months in, Vanessa asked the question Tom had been wondering. Why did you say yes? To that first date? You could have dismissed me as some privileged CEO slumming with the help. Tom considered carefully. Because you asked. Not commanded, not implied, not hinted. You made yourself vulnerable by asking directly, risking rejection, admitting you wanted something. That took more courage than most people show. It deserved an honest consideration. I was terrified you'd say no. I almost did. The class difference, the workplace complication, the risk of it ending badly. There were 100 reasons to decline. What changed your mind? Max said I deserved to be happy, and I realized he was right. I'd been so focused on being a good father that I'd forgotten I was allowed to be a complete person. You reminded me that those things aren't mutually exclusive. 6 months into their relationship, Vanessa met Tom's ex-wife during a custody exchange. The meeting was brief but tense, with Tom's ex making pointed comments about moving on quickly and interesting choices. In the car afterward, Vanessa was quiet. Finally, she said, she thinks I'm slumming, dating someone beneath my station as some kind of experiment. Are you? God, no. Tom, you're the most genuine person I've ever met. You see people, not positions. You measure worth by character, not credentials. You've built a beautiful life for Max, despite having every reason to be bitter about how your marriage ended. That's not beneath anyone. That's aspirational. Then why does it bother you what she thinks? Because I'm terrified she's right. Not about slumming, but about me not fitting into your world. I'm a CEO who works 70-hour weeks and drives a Tesla, and probably can't relate to your actual life. What if I'm just playing it normal? Tom pulled over, turning to face her. "Vanessa, you asked me out in a building lobby while I was covered in drywall dust. You had coffee with me in work clothes. You spent 3 hours at a science museum with my 10-year-old explaining coding concepts he'll use for a school project. You don't eat breakfast most days because you're rushing to meetings, so I started packing you granola bars. You fall asleep during movies because you're exhausted from running a company. That's not playing it normal, that's just life. Complicated, imperfect, real life. I don't want to mess this up. Then don't. Just keep being honest. Keep showing up. Keep being the person who had the courage to ask out a maintenance worker because she saw something worth knowing. That's all I need." A year after that initial lobby conversation, Vanessa's company went public. The IPO was successful beyond projections, making her wealthy on paper in ways Tom couldn't fully comprehend. He attended the closing bell ceremony, feeling out of place in the borrowed suit, surrounded by people who spoke in financial terminology he didn't understand. Afterward, at the celebration dinner, Vanessa introduced him to investors and board members as Tom, my partner without qualification or explanation. Several people made assumptions, asking what firm he was with, what his position was. Each time, Vanessa corrected them simply, "Tom does building maintenance. He's brilliant at it." Later, Tom asked, "Doesn't it bother you? People assuming I'm something I'm not, why would it bother me? You are something. You're a skilled tradesman, a devoted father, and someone who makes me want to be better. That's more impressive than most people in that room can claim." She took his hand. "I didn't ask you out because of your job title. I asked you out despite knowing exactly what your job was. Nothing about today changes what matters." 2 years after she'd approached him in the lobby, Tom proposed. Not with an expensive ring, he couldn't afford that, but with a simple band and a promise. "I can't offer you luxury or social climbing or the kind of life CEOs usually marry into. But I can offer you honesty, partnership, and a family that will value you for who you are rather than what you've achieved. If that's enough, I'd be honored to build a life with you." Vanessa cried, said yes, and later admitted, "That proposal was more romantic than anything I ever imagined." Because it was real. No performance, no grand gesture designed for social media. Just you, offering what you have, trusting that it's enough. Is it enough? It's everything. At their small wedding, immediate family only, held in Mrs. Cordova's apartment building courtyard, Max served as best man while Mrs. Cordova cried happy tears. Vanessa's corporate colleagues were notably absent, replaced by residents Tom had helped over the years and the genuine community he'd built through simple, consistent kindness. "This is the best day of my life," Vanessa whispered during their first dance. "Not because of the wedding, but because I'm marrying someone who taught me that asking for what you want isn't weakness. It's courage. Thank you for saying yes. Thank you for asking, for taking the risk, for seeing something worth knowing in a maintenance worker with drywall dust on his pants." I saw someone worth knowing, period. Everything else was just details. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is ask for what you want without apology or pretense. Sometimes being vulnerable enough to admit you're interested in someone beneath your station reveals that station was never real, just social construct built on arbitrary measures of worth. Vanessa had asked. Tom had said yes. Together they'd built something neither could have created alone, a partnership based not on position but on genuine respect, not on social climbing but on seeing each other clearly and choosing to move forward anyway. One lobby conversation, one CEO willing to risk rejection, one maintenance worker willing to believe he was worth more than his job title suggested. That's all it took to build a love story that proved worth isn't measured by income or credentials. It's measured by courage, kindness, and the willingness to ask for what your heart wants, even when everything else says you shouldn't.